What if the dead could reveal the truth behind a murder? Oddity is a 2024 supernatural horror film written and directed by Damien McCarthy. With an IMDb rating of 6.7 stars out of 10, this Irish thriller will keep you hooked from start to finish. Before we dive into the story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more chilling recaps. Now let's unravel the eerie tale of Oddity. At the start of the film, a woman named Dani is shown renovating her newly purchased countryside home. She sets up a camera near the front entrance to capture time-lapse photos at regular intervals. Later, she finds a network signal and calls her husband, Dr. Ted Timmis, a psychiatrist working the night shift at a psychiatric hospital. While Dani plans to spend the night at the house to continue her renovations, Ted advises her not to work too late. After hanging up, Dani calls her sister, Darcy Odello, and leaves a voice message saying, "We're connected." Later that night, Dani steps out to retrieve a jacket from her car when she suddenly hears strange sounds. Startled, she quickly returns inside and locks the door. Moments later, she hears noises at the door. When she opens it, she finds a man named Olin who has a prosthetic eye. He informs her that someone had entered the house while she was outside. He asks to be let in. Dani refuses, insisting that her husband is on his way home. Olin explains that Ted works the night shift, and as it turns out, he is one of Dr. Ted's recently discharged patients. Dani warns him to call the police, but Olin urges her to do so instead, assuring her that she will be safe. Reluctantly, Dani admits that she left her phone in the car, and Olin reveals he doesn't have one either. Suddenly, they both hear noises from inside the house, which convinces Dani that Olin might be telling the truth. She approaches the door cautiously to open it, and the scene cuts. The scene shifts to the psychiatric hospital, where a patient named Declan Barrett is sketching alone in his room. Suddenly, he hears strange noises coming from outside his door. Alarmed, he cautiously opens the door, but something frightens him, and he quickly retreats to hide under his bed. After a tense moment, Declan musters the courage to open the door again. To his horror, he discovers a lifeless body in the hallway, the head brutally crushed. Amid the blood, Declan notices a prosthetic eye, that the victim is Olin, the man from the earlier scene. The scene cuts to a year later, showing Ted visiting Dani's blind twin sister, Darcy Odello, who runs a shop selling cursed objects. Darcy shows him a haunted bell and shares its dark history. According to the story, a bellboy working at a hotel was helping a drunken guest one night, but the bellboy was pushed down the stairs and died. A few days later, the hotel receptionist rang the bell to summon a new bellboy, only to see the deceased bellboy approach her in a fit of rage. Ted, skeptical of the tale, suggests ringing the bell to test the story. However, Darcy warns him that the last two people who rang it were found dead. Then Ted informs Darcy that Declan Barrett died of a heart attack last week. While sorting through Declan's belongings, Ted found Olin's prosthetic eye and gave it to Darcy, asking why she wanted it. It's revealed that Dani was killed that night, and Olin was believed to be the killer. Darcy had requested Olin's personal items from Ted to understand why Olin might have killed Dani and whether he regretted it. Afterward, Darcy invites Ted to dinner next week, on the anniversary of Dani's death. He agrees and mentions that he's now living with his girlfriend, Yana, which upsets Darcy as she feels he's moved on too quickly. Ted explains that Yana is a pharmaceutical representative at his hospital and was with him when Dani died. Ted also invites Darcy to meet Yana during the dinner. Later, when Darcy returns home, she listens to an old voicemail from Dani. In the message, Dani says, "We're connected," and mentions that she set up a time-lapse camera near the entrance, as Darcy had suggested, to detect any paranormal activity in the old house. Dani had also invited Darcy to dinner the following day. Later, Darcy touches Olin's prosthetic eye and experiences a vivid vision of the events that transpired the night Dani was killed. Having uncovered the truth, Darcy returns to her shop to open a locked trunk. A week later, Ted wakes up in the evening to prepare for his night shift. Yana, feeling uneasy, complains that she doesn't like being alone in the house at night. While searching for something, she comes across Dani's old camera, which contains photos of Dani and Ted. Yana shows Ted a picture she took 2 days ago, in which Dani's figure appears faintly in the background. Concerned, Yana shares her fears, but Ted dismisses it, explaining that it's likely just a case of double exposure. Yana tells Ted that she saw Dani the night before and feels the lack of sleep is taking a toll on her. She suggests moving back to her apartment until Ted starts working regular hours, and he agrees. Before leaving, Yana shows Ted a wooden trunk that Darcy had sent as a gift, mentioning that Darcy is waiting outside the house. Surprising the couple, Darcy reveals that Ted had invited her to dinner a week ago. However, Ted explains that he's heading to work and Yana is staying in the city, so they won't be able to have dinner tonight. Darcy, undeterred, says that since she's already there, she'd like to stay, even if it means being alone. With no other option, Ted agrees to let Darcy stay. Darcy then opens the trunk, revealing a wooden mannequin that once belonged to their mother as a gift from a witch, and says she wants Ted to have it. Though hesitant, Ted reluctantly accepts the gift. While Darcy goes to the bathroom, Yana expresses her annoyance at Darcy's unexpected arrival and her frustration over the gift. Ted tries to calm her, promising to get rid of the trunk once Darcy leaves. Ted leaves for work, and at the hospital he reviews Declan's file, noticing strange, dark drawings. Meanwhile, at the house, Yana prepares to leave for the city, but notices that the mannequin has been taken out of the box. When she asks Darcy why she removed it, Darcy insists she didn't touch it. Frustrated, Yana heads to her car, only to discover that her keys are missing. With no other option, Yana decides to stay in the house with Darcy. While they eat, Darcy asks how long Ted and Yana have known each other. Yana responds that it's been 2 years and clarifies that they only started dating after Danny passed away. Curious, Yana then asks about Darcy's profession. Darcy explains that she owns an antique store inherited from their mother. She also reveals that she has the ability to read people's lives by touching personal objects like watches or rings. Darcy then asks Yana how she feels about staying in the house at night. Yana admits she doesn't feel comfortable and is afraid another one of Ted's patients might show up at the door to attack her. Darcy reveals that Olin didn't kill her sister. The scene shifts to that night. When Danny refused to let Olin inside, he told her he would head to the city to call the police. Before leaving, he urged Danny to stay near the door and run immediately if she heard anything unusual. After Olin left, Danny grabbed the camera and stepped inside the tent. As she scrolled through the images, she spotted a figure wearing a mask inside the house. Fear gripped her, and she quickly unzipped the tent. Suddenly, the masked man attacked and killed Danny. Later, Yana tells Darcy that Olin was committed to the psychiatric ward after beating his mother to death. However, Darcy clarifies that Olin's mother was abusive. She blinded him in one eye and attempted to blind his other eye, leading Olin to kill her in self-defense. Confused, Yana turns to Darcy and asks, if Olin didn't kill Danny, then who did? In the next scene, Ivan, a healthcare worker at the psychiatric hospital, approaches Ted and asks why he never mentioned that his late wife had a blind twin. When Ted asks how he found out, Ivan explains that he recently visited an antique shop and nearly had a heart attack upon seeing Danny's twin, thinking he had seen Danny's ghost. Ted then receives a call from Yana, who tells him she's trapped in the house because she can't find her car keys and believes Darcy has hidden them. She also reveals that Darcy claims Ivan, not Olin, killed Danny. Alarmed, Ted assures Yana that Darcy isn't well and instructs her to lock herself in the bedroom. He promises to return as soon as possible. After the call, when she looks again, the mannequin appears to be in its original position. While Darcy is asleep, Yana closely examines the mannequin and notices 5 holes in its head. Curious, she checks inside and discovers a childhood photo of the twins, a more recent photo of them as adults, a tooth, and a tube of blood. Suddenly,
put them all back. Now.
Yana quickly returns everything inside the mannequin and goes to bed. Later, Darcy sits at the table in the same position as the mannequin. Yana, meanwhile, watches old footage on Danny's camera and suddenly...
What do you think, Ted?
She then notices Danny's ghost standing in the room. Terrified, Yana runs downstairs to wake Darcy, but Darcy remains asleep. Hearing a noise from the trunk, Yana opens it and finds her car keys inside. She immediately runs outside. Panicked, Yana jumps into her car and speeds away from the house. Ted returns home and finds Darcy sitting alone in the dark. When he asks about Yana, Darcy replies that Danny's ghost frightened her away. Ted questions why Darcy believes Ivan killed Danny, insisting that Olin was responsible. Darcy admits that she initially thought Olin was the killer, which is why she killed him. However, after using Olin's prosthetic eye, she learned the truth, that Ivan was the one who murdered Danny. She adds that she plans to pay for taking an innocent life. Ted, still skeptical, points out Danny and Ivan never even met. Why would he kill her?
Because you asked him to.
Excuse me?
She claims Ted should have been honest with Danny about loving someone else and wanting a divorce instead of resorting to murder. In a flashback, Ted is shown plotting Danny's murder with Ivan. When Ivan questions why Ted can't simply divorce her, Ted explains that Danny loves him too much and would never be able to move on. He adds that if she discovered his relationship with Yana, he would lose the house where he had invested all his savings. Ivan suggests waiting until the house is fully furnished so the murder could be staged as a robbery, but Ted refuses to wait. Meanwhile, Olin overhears their conversation through the vent in his cell, which is why he warned Danny that night. In the present, Darcy reveals to Ted that she initially planned to kill him, but now prefers to make him suffer by losing everything: his house, girlfriend, job, and freedom. Ted, however, denies any involvement in Danny's murder and asks Darcy if she trusts Detective Peter Minehan, who led the investigation into Danny's death. When Darcy confirms she does, Ted suggests she call the detective and share everything she just told him, claiming the detective will present evidence proving Olin was the killer. Darcy demands that Ted make the call himself, but Ted claims he doesn't have the detective's number. He offers to visit the detective's office and have him contact Darcy directly. Ted places his phone in front of her, telling her to answer when the detective calls. As Ted walks away, Darcy breaks down, sobbing loudly for her sister. Instead of heading to the police, Ted goes to the hospital and makes a call to his phone, which he had left at the house after opening a trapdoor in front of Darcy. Back at the house, Darcy rushes to pick up the phone but falls into the trap. At the hospital, Ted confronts Ivan, asking if he told Darcy the truth since she somehow learned everything. Ivan insists he didn't reveal anything. Ted then orders Ivan to go to the house and finish Darcy off. When Ivan arrives at the house, he finds the mannequin in its usual position and Darcy lying on the floor, still breathing. He calls Ted, assuring him that Darcy won't survive much longer. Suddenly, Darcy raises her hand and whispers, "We are connected." Ivan, unnerved, prepares to leave but hears a strange noise. Turning back, he realizes the mannequin has disappeared. Terrified, Ivan runs from the mannequin and jumps from the first floor to escape, injuring his leg. As he struggles to move, the mannequin approaches, ready to crush his head. But just then, Darcy sees her sister and passes away, causing the mannequin to freeze in place. The scene shifts to Ivan, now tied up in a hospital room. Ted stands over him, saying they can't let him go because of his past crimes. Ted demands to know what happened at the house. Ivan, still shaken, says the wooden mannequin chased and attacked him. Ted laughs, not believing in the supernatural. Ted dismisses Ivan's story, claiming he had already burned the mannequin and it never moved. Then Ivan asks to see a priest, wanting to confess his sins, but promises not to mention Ted. Fearing Ivan might expose him, Ted releases a dangerous, cannibalistic patient into Ivan's room. The patient kills and eats Ivan. Later, on his way home, Ted listens to a voice message from Yana. In it, she tells him she's ending their relationship and questions how he can continue living in a house where two people died mysteriously. When Ted arrives home, he notices a package from Darcy's store on his doorstep. Curious, he opens it to reveal the cursed bell that Darcy had once claimed was haunted by a bellboy's spirit. Skeptical, Ted rings the bell, convinced that ghosts aren't real. He glances around, waiting for something to happen, but the house remains silent. Feeling foolish, he begins to laugh. The camera pans to reveal the bellboy standing silently behind Ted. The movie ends. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Let us know what you'd like us to cover next. Stay spooky, and peace out, movie buffs.